Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the studio this evening. And blimey, this camera has come on. I'm not pointing at the right place, but it's come on. There we go. I really don't particularly like this camera. It's an old Microsoft video camera, and it doesn't sit very well on the desk. And it's not got, well, it's only got a VGA resolution off the top of my head, and I can't zoom it or anything, and it keeps falling over. All in all, nice camera. Good evening, everybody. Welcome. I'm going to continue with the pyrography this afternoon or this evening. So, yeah, we're working on an elephant. Kind of obvious, isn't it now? I'm going to do a bit more on this ear because it kind of doesn't look like an ear at the moment. So I'm going to do excuse me, a bit more on that ear, and then we do some more work down around here, and then we'll just dot about all over the place doing bits and pieces and see how it turns out. So one of the things I'm going to do is I am going to change my glasses. I'm getting old, you see. Prescription keeps changing. These are these are occupational lenses. That's varifocals with only 2 zones, not 3. And I can see perfectly clearly with them, but I can see better with my other ones. For doing this anyway. I spent a long time ago, well, a year or so ago now, spent quite a bit of money on those very occupational lenses they're called, and I actually find I prefer single vision lenses, which is what these are. Right, so all that sort of stuff that you didn't really want to know. Let's turn the pyro on and we can get started. Well, this tool is now hot. That's how quick this thing heats up. So so essentially what we've got here is the ears sort of folded over. Well, I'm going to probably do some adjustment on that in a minute, but what I want to do is just bring it to so the ear is quite it's folded over, or it's flopped over. It's quite light. Excuse me, I've just finished my tea and I keep wanting to clear my throat. So I need to just create a sort of fairly smooth shape, really. Okay, I can see something there at the moment. Now the ear though is fairly nicely rounded off, so this around here, that's a bit of a sharp curve. So all I'm going to do is make this a nice smooth curve. Yeah, we'll work on that. We'll work on the exact shape of the fold over. in a moment. But first I just want to sort of establish the general shape of the fold over. This tool seems to be a bit cool this evening. Have I got a good connection? One of dear, that's annoying. One of the things about these pens that I don't actually like is quite literally those are going to be no good. Is quite literally the connector on the back here. And this connector is what's commonly known as an RCA or phono connector. One of the reasons why they get called phono is to do with phonograph and sound, and essentially they are meant to be a sound connector, not a power connector. And here they're being used as a power connector, and it's attempting to carry quite a significant amount of not power but current, and in theory they can take it, but it wouldn't be my choice, shall we say, if I was designing these things, to use phono connectors to carry the hefty current that these things do indeed carry. Because they can be running anything up to about 10 amps of current down into this tip here, and that's a significant amount of current to try and push through a phono connector. So that's the one thing I'm not fantastically enamoured for on these pens. Otherwise, I do love these pens. I would prefer them, as I say, to have a different connector, but I am stuck with what I've got, really. Quite a lot of systems use them as well, so I don't know if that is because somebody did and therefore everybody else copies, or quite what. I mean, I know other systems have the pens hardwired. You can't change them, you can only plug them in at the other end. It's one way of doing it, and the other end plug is often what's their bare wires, like spade connectors under terminal posts, so you get a really good connection at that end. Okay, what it means is you have an extra bit of wire on every pen. I kind of would have preferred that myself, but pays your money, you take your choice. You know, it's it does literally mean that the pens are really easy and quick to change, though, which is one huge advantage. You don't have to spend 5-10 minutes trying to change a pen. I can do it literally in seconds. Well, it's a Friday night, and it's the weekend tomorrow. I'm quite looking forward to the weekend. I've got some work to do tomorrow. Don't know whether I'll be streaming in the afternoon, because it really depends on how much work I get through in the morning, but it's work I really want to do, so keep mentioning a new studio is on the horizon, and it is for towards the end of the year, early next year, and the work I've got to do is associated with that. It's a new build studio, so I'm looking at plans, wiring diagrams and all sorts of stuff, and I'm trying to remember my old training in network design and things like that. So that I can remember, work out how many Cat 6, I'm in Cat 6 now, Cat 6 wiring points I want, where they need to be, what you can cross patch on Cat 6 and what you can't, and well, what you can cross patch on Cat 5, because Cat 6 wasn't around when I was doing that sort of thing. Trying to find out just quite how expensive managed switches are, and switches that'll support VLANs, and working out how to cover a big wide area with wireless that is bigger than the range of a wireless transmitter, so into things like handovers and all sorts of things. You wouldn't think you need all that sort of stuff for a studio, would you? Right. Now, one of the things I have to bear in mind in doing this is that what I might want to do if I want white highlights on here, I have to make the background darker, so I've got to remember about that. I have to leave the background as it is and make the white highlights darker. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but it really is all relative to each other. Being Africa, of course, we've got a blue sky, or we've got a bright red-orange sky if we're talking about heading towards dusk and sunset. Okay, so that's another part of the ear. What I want to do though is I've got to kind of need Okay, what I'd like to do is, this ear is folded over, I'd like to continue a light edge up here alongside this, which is lighter than this. I can only do that really by making the background darker, which is kind of awkward. So I'll have to decide what to do with that in a little while. As to whether or not, whether I make that background darker or whether I apply a light colour across here. So that basically the lightest tone I can get away with, so that that becomes the white. And of course we've got the black of the eye and this dark area here, which I may end up making darker still yet. I'm going to do for the minute though is just hint at the fact that it does go, there is sort of more to the ear, if you like, across there, and I need a little bit more consistent shading on that. So I wonder how many people are joining the stream expecting to see, I don't know, smoke and stuff coming off this wood. If you are, I'm sorry, but I'm going to disappoint you. That's kind of the last thing I want to see. My form of pyrography is very much a more gentle application of heat, and somewhat significantly less amount of it is applied. So I've got a lot more control. I'm not wanting this just to go straight to black. And for you to get smoke, essentially it means that you've carbonized the wood itself rather than sort of cooked the resin or the sap out of the wood, which is what this is doing at the moment. So if anybody's familiar with making maple syrup, for example, this is kind of analogous to doing just that. You're taking the sap out of the wood and cooking it, which turns it a golden brown, and now we're putting it back on the wood as a glaze or a varnish. And it is, if you run your fingers over it, for example, it very much is like a varnish. It's also a bit like you've been ironing the wood as well, because essentially that's what you have been doing, applying a flat iron which smooths it out. The wood does shrink as you apply heat as well. Excuse me. So you do get a sort of a texture or an edge of it as well. Now then, of course, right. That, of course, was me seeing more in my reference images, seeing more about what the reference images are telling me, and me actually realising that some of this shadow is actually well, I knew it was caused by the trunk, but I can actually see a little bit of the trunk shape in the shadow, which explains why I've got a light area in the middle here. I am literally darkening the shadow just underneath here where the ear is folded over. Actually, one of the things I'm wondering is whether this pen has got a little bit of carbonization built up on the bottom. It does happen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of paper and I'm going to clean the pen. But before I do that, I am looking for, that'll do, a bit of rough wood, because the heat will go through the paper. If I put it on the wood I'm working on, the heat will go through the paper and make the wood brown, and that's in an area that I just don't know what I'll be doing with, because it's covered with paper. So here, by the way, this is how hot the knife is, if you like. This paper is not bursting into flames. I am, however, ironing the paper quite nicely. if I hold it in place, I will make it go brown, because paper is wood fibre. So you can apply pyrography to paper. It's easier to do on thick card or thick heavyweight paper than it is to do on thin paper. And indeed, if I tried this on sort of the paper using inkjet printers, generally speaking, it does tend to burn all the way through. Char all the way through very quickly. I'm always a bit hesitant of using the word burn, because I do my best not to burn anything. If you do like the smell of wood fires, for example, this can be quite a pleasant hobby. You sort of do get that as you heat the wood up, like I'm doing here now, for quite an extensive period of time to make it go darker. You do get that sort of wood burning smell. You know, the wood actually, though, here is not hot enough to burn. It won't set on fire or self-combust or anything like that. This tool at the moment is just not turned up hot enough to enable that to take place. So what I am doing is, I'm heating that sap, and that sap is turning really dark brown, and potentially I can, if I hold this in place for long enough, I can carbonize that resin or the sap, and but it's still very unlikely to actually combust. So just emphasising the shadow right under the folded part of the ear here. Just mainly because I just felt like doing that in that particular area. There you go, that should help make it look like it's just creating that slight curve there should help make it look like it's curved. And generally speaking, that darkness is going to come down here. This area is too light really for where it is. We're going to apply a level of darkness, but what I'm going to do is, yeah, it's a bit light, but we're going to make this slightly darker, but not completely dark. So we'll darken this area off. We'll make just around here a little bit darker still, sort of like, you know, multi-stage darkness. It's colour at the moment. Some wood, as you start to apply pyrography, It gets a bit muddy to start with, which is what this sort of looks like, a bit sort of dusty looking before the colour actually builds up quite nicely. But again, you can work with this. I mean, it is part of the colour palette. It can just look a little bit pale at times, a bit washed out. And if there is anybody who has any particular questions, or even general questions about pyrography, scraper board, carving, chainmail jewellery, I've missed one out, punchcraft. Those are the 5 crafts that I've done on stream so far. I also do cross stitch, needlepoint, rug making in 2 different styles, latch hook and punch work. I do airbrush, shallow glass engraving, high-speed rotary carving, and probably a few other things as well, including making models. That's large scale, small large scale models. Large scale being 1/12 is about the largest scale I've got, but I make models generally from kits because it's easier, and I am a little bit lazy, and I'm sure I do some other things as well. I fly model helicopters and things, so if you have any general questions about any of that lot, feel free to ask. Some of them you'll see on stream from time to time, and some you won't. Things like the glass engraving you're unlikely to see for a while, just because for safety reasons I would want to use at least an extractor fan. That's behind me. I can't easily get a camera there, and I can't move the fan. Well, I can move the fan, but it would be in the way to put it here, and I wouldn't be able to use it. Because glass engraving of course creates glass dust, and you don't want to be breathing that. The alternative to using the extractor fan is to wear a particle mask, or in my case I tend to wear a carbon mask, and if I did that I'd be talking otherwise, and you wouldn't be able to understand the words I'm saying, because the mask is a 3/4 mask. It covers your mouth and nose. I suppose I could do what divers do and insert a microphone somehow into the mask itself, but then I'd probably sound like Darth Vader as well, so we shall leave that one for a while. Same actually with the high-speed rotary carving, because the tools that I use, especially one of them which is essentially a dental instrument, runs at about 360,000 RPM. It is very good at turning wood into dust, and that dust gets everywhere if you're not using some form of extractor. But I am quite happy to explain how it's done, or anything about that style of crafting or those tools, if anybody's interested or wants to know anything about them. So for the minute I'm just fading this shadow. I'll decide in a while just how much I want this lower area to be darkness wise. We do have a shadow of the trunk which catches across the ear as well, in this area, and a little bit on the front of the trunk here as well, but we'll see how it goes in terms of putting that sort of detail in. So this is pyrography, if you're not familiar with pyrography. Well, as far as I'm aware, pyrography has got Greek roots or Latin roots, I'm not quite sure, but the almost the literal translation, pyro meaning fire, the graphy meaning writing, but yeah, it's almost my standard sort of response that you'll see neither fire or very likely writing as well when I'm doing this. It's I used to translate it as drawing with heat. It's more painting with heat. It kind of works more like a painting style than a drawing style. So this is creating images in a painting style using a heated tool, which is what this is in my hand, electrically heated. The heat on the wood causes the sap, the resin that's in the wood to come out. It is effectively being cooked, which changes its colour, and then it lays on the surface. It becomes a little bit thicker, like a glaze or like a syrup, and that's where the colours come from. The more heat, the darker the colour, and you can get more heat from two things: either turning the heat up on the tool or by leaving it in place longer. So you apply a lower heat for a longer time or a higher heat for a shorter time to get a similar sort of effect. I have a preference to apply heat for a lower heat for a longer period of time. It gives me more control, allows me to stop in the middle, and gives me better control over creating multiple shades. I can turn this up, and then to create a shade I have to be really quick, and if I linger a little bit too long, or I don't quite put the tool down in the right place, or I'll keep it moving when I touch it down, I'll very quickly get sort of colour areas that are darker than what I intended. And that's okay if you're experienced, you can do that. I've got quite a bit of experience, but it takes a lot of skill to do high speed with very high heat, and I don't yet have that skill. I wish I did. And sometimes I do get impatient and turn the heat up, and there's a bit of a trade-off. As I work my way through this piece, and I'll get to learn more of the wood and sort of get back used to using the pyro tools, I will almost certainly turn the heat up, because I'll have I've developed the knowledge about this particular piece that will allow me to do that, knowing when to turn it up and when to turn it down. And that's not, that is just something that comes with practice, really. Yeah, I am sort of, this is a heat setting of, let's say, 4. So if I turn this up to 5, it will cook a lot faster, but because I'm now used to the heat of this and how long this takes, I've got more control if I turn it up a little bit, because it will just be a bit faster, and I'll just work a bit faster to start with and discover it's not quite doing what I want, so I'll slow down a little bit. And you sort of change factors like that, or I might find it's a bit fast and I'll turn the heat down a little bit. You tweak it as you go, and it also depends on quite what I'm trying to do. If I was trying to really carbonise this, I'd turn it up quite a bit. It'd be quicker to do that than try and apply lots and lots of heat over a long period of time. I do kind of not exactly get impatient, but I don't necessarily like doing things lots of times just for the sake of it when I could just turn the heat up a little bit. But anyway, right, so just just darkening this area a little bit. It's in shadow, and in fact what I'll do is I'm going to come back to it in a bit. I'm going to do a bit more of something else. We're going to come over this side here and do a little bit more around where this tusk goes into the elephant's skull. I'm going to try and do this with sort of curved strokes as I come down here, because it will tend to show, I'll call them tooling marks, but it'll tend to show a texture which is curved. Some of the marks will be subtle, some of them will be invisible, but where there are some, the curve will give your eye a clue to the fact that it is supposed to be curved. And I've got to work out just where that comes to, and apply the right shading. So generally speaking, at this bottom edge here it'll be darker than up the side here, then it's lighter again on top. Now with the elephant skin here, I'm going to be applying colour and then I'll apply texture afterwards. The texture being the lines that you see, the creases and folds in the elephant skin. And I don't know why I had a sudden desire to call this lion I think just then for some reason. Yesterday I was trying to call it a dragon, and that's because I've been carving a dragon for the last several weeks, and my brain just kept wanting to refer to it as a dragon. Tonight for some reason I was trying to call it a lion, I think. Now a lot of the shapes won't really show up until we start to put some of those lines in. So I am really just working on it. In painting terms, actually, this is probably more similar to underpainting, where you establish sort of underneath colours before you put the details on top. So it's not even quite block, although that's how I'm working, is in blocks and things. But it is more akin to underpainting, and then we'll put more detailed colouring on top and the actual lines and creases in the elephant's skin, which is going to prove interesting. Now this area is kind of like the mouth. Well, it kind of is the mouth rather than like the mouth. and if I wanted to show up, I've got to work out which are the darker areas and which are the lighter areas. The mouth is, generally speaking, sort of slightly darker than this area around the tusk. I'm looking at shapes. Certainly as an airbrush artist, one of the things that you come across frequently is a saying, and I'm sure it applies to other forms of art as well. That is that you paint what you see, not what you think. Most people paint what they think, especially beginners, like I was at one time, and I still do it now. Even though you think you're painting what you see, you paint what you think, and most often when you do that, that's when you get messed up, because what you think is, you think something is round and therefore you should be round, but when you actually see it, it might if you looked at it, it might look oval from the perspective you're looking at it, and if you don't make it oval, it doesn't look right. So if you were to have drawn it round in the first place, or painted it round, you've drawn what you think it should be round, not what you're actually seeing it as. And so that is one of the tricks to develop in any form of art form, really, is to paint what you see. And to paint what you see, you've got to keep looking at your reference pictures, or, I mean, sometimes your reference picture is close to what you're painting. Sometimes you've just got lots of images that help you to see how things look. So how elephants' tusks look, for example, the way they curve, so that when you're drawing it or painting it, and if you don't have an exact reference image, you can still construct how things look by looking at 2 or 3 pictures and sort of saying, well, on this one the elephant's tusk does this, on this one it does that. Generally speaking, they all sort of curve, they come around in a curve over and in, it's that sort of general shape, and you get that from looking at lots of reference pictures. So it is often really helpful to have lots of pictures, even if it doesn't actually resemble the one that you're trying to represent, because it helps you to understand the general shapes involved, or the general body structures involved of the animals that you're attempting to put down onto the art piece. So it's a relatively slow process, is pyrography. For me, at least. There are people that are able to work a lot faster than me. One thing I would say, if you watch YouTube, and there's quite a few really good pyrographic artists on there. One to look out, for example, is Jean Buick. She's an excellent artist. I think I've seen all the YouTube videos at least 2 or 3 times, and I do keep an eye out for any new ones, although unfortunately they don't get posted very often. But a lot of videos that you will see on YouTube have been sped up. They're using a time-lapse technique, so it sometimes looks like things happen really quickly, when in actual fact, your 30-minute video may have been 20 hours of work, all just time-lapsed. And it could quite easily be progressing at this sort of speed that you're seeing here, but of course YouTube is a different medium. and people don't like long videos, or so I understand. So I'm establishing an intermediate colour between this one and this one for this area. That way you can see those parts standing out from one another. In practice, the colour differences between here and here are quite subtle and mostly delineated by the dark line between the two, and I could make that darker again. But sometimes it's better, rather than, it's better sometimes to make the choice and say, you know what, whilst the two should be almost similar, I'm actually going to space them out a little bit more in colour so it becomes a little bit more obvious. And that's, in real life that would just be a matter of a slight difference in lighting, so why not do it? You're the artist, if you represent it, as long as it looks like you want it to look, and in my case I want it to look like an elephant, so you look at it, recognise it as an elephant, and the colouring looks correct. Who cares what it actually looked like in the reference image that you're using, or images. I must admit though, when I started doing a lot of this stuff, I love detail, and I would really try and reproduce reference images exactly down to colour and tone and shade, and it is something I have learned over, partly through streaming but partly just from doing quite a few pyrographic pieces, that it's not necessary to be that exact. And in fact sometimes it's amazing what your brain inserts into what it sees that allows something that actually doesn't look like it should for your brain to read it as it should. AD Fall Guy, good evening, welcome to the studio this evening. Blimey, is it already that time? An hour has gone with it's gone flying by. Yeah, so just it's like the it's like the word thing. Certainly in English, you can take out, you can replace every letter in a word with gibberish as long as you leave the first letter and the last letter intact. So you can do that with every word in a sentence, and most people can read the sentence perfectly and not realise that the letters are jumbled. And that's a real weird thing. When you do it for yourself, you read one of these things and then you read the bit about the bottom that says all the letters are jumbled, and you go, no they're not, until you look back and you see that all the letters are jumbled. And it's amazing what brains can do. So how are you, Eddie? I saw you making saw you making watch straps. Did I stick my fingers in the socket? Is that some reference to the colour of my my skin? Suntan or whatever. This camera has a weird colour of representation, and the light's off to one side, which doesn't help, because I'm now getting a mix of colour temperature from that, from the fluorescent, and from some LED lighting I've got above. Oh, my hair. Oh dear, yeah, my hair. Sorry, it does that. I've got real weird hair. I've got real fine hair. Used to be called baby hair. It's really fine, and it will just stick up, and I can't do anything. No, it's not the camera angle. I often have hair literally stood up like this. I can't do anything about it. It won't stick down. Well, the only way I can stick it down is literally to wet it. I suppose I could put loads of hair gel on, but I don't like hair gel. And I can't use hairspray because my wife is allergic to to the driver, the solvent that's in there, solvent or the driver, one or the other. So yeah, I quite often have it. It sticks out all over the place, like I've literally, as you say, like you stuck your fingers in a socket. Because when I didn't have a face cam, that wasn't a problem. Well, it's not a problem now, but you know, it wasn't visible to anybody. Yeah, it's weird. I never quite know which is the best view for the camera, but given that I've got my head down most of the time, I think this one's probably better than having it up high, because then you just see the top of my head and the reflection off of it. So, do you have anything planned for the weekend, Eddie? Or is it just going to be a quiet weekend doing things? I gather from what you said on the stream that at least one of your plans has got scuppered this weekend, but there's an English phraseology, isn't it? Scuppered. From a naval term, I believe. Yeah, it's all right. It's nice to be distracted sometimes. I'm not timing this. Suppose I ought to time it. It's just that I've got some idea, but one of these days I'll sort it out. What I want to do when I start timing things is I want a button that's on the desk. Be a USB button, but well, maybe it won't. Maybe I'll plug it straight into the Ethernet. But I want a button that hit it to start the timer and then it lights up. And when you hit it again, it stops the timer. And you can keep doing that. Then it's obvious whether it's on or off. And you don't spend 20-30 minutes doing a project before you realise that the timer's not running. Oh, you're doing shed building. I'm looking at building plans tomorrow and wiring plans and things like that for the new studio. So in some ways it's going to be a fun day, but it will also be quite a tiring day. I've no idea. I don't want it to be me, you see, because that's why I want a big light up button. So it's kind of obvious. And then I can sit that next to my other panel of ones that are going to drive the OBS when I get around to it. I've got plenty of square to it, but I don't have any round ones. Never yet found a source of those. They keep coming up occasionally, but I have no idea where you get them from. And my apologies to anybody whose normal language isn't English and didn't understand that. See, I want to learn from experience, 84 guy. Although I don't mind so much people seeing mistakes, it quite literally doesn't worry me. I've kind of got over that a long time ago. I guess got over it from work. It's kind of like, yeah, I made a mistake. Okay, let's fix it or move on, and I don't worry about them being public. In your case, it depends on how the because you're driving it from a PC, so it really depends on quite how you interface the button. The easiest way of doing it would be to well, with an Arduino, for example, not an Arduino, but yeah, one of the Arduinos, or even a picture, but say the Arduinos. There's at least one or two of them which have got onboard USB capability. That's directly on the CPU, not as a separate chip. And so they can be programmed to act as a keyboard or a mouse interface, or a serial port, or a joystick. And you could, well, any of the Arduinos, you could talk to them over the USB as a serial port until your program can open the serial port, the COM interface. You've just got to find it or configure it somehow in a menu and send it a character code to turn a light on or turn a light off. The other way you could do it with an Arduino is to tell the Arduino to represent the keyboard. Then all you need to do, for example, is send a caps lock key or a shift lock key, or a scroll lock key or a function lock key code to it, if you like, to turn the relevant lights on, like you have on the keyboard. And it doesn't really matter if you turn in the scroll lock key on, the scroll lock on or off, for example, so the keyboard lights up, that sort of thing. So if you get a light like that on your keyboard, doesn't really matter, you can light the button in front of you. That's perhaps the easiest way of doing it, and it becomes self-configured then, because all the keyboards will turn their scroll lock lights on. I don't know about the joystick interfaces, whether there's a feedback channel on those. So you don't really need, you don't need to write drivers or anything like that. So there's a couple of ways there. What I was thinking actually of doing is probably, if I do a timer, is not to do it on the PC, but actually to do it on the server. So I fire up a virtual machine on the server with a web server on it, basically, and then all I do is have the button with an Ethernet interface on it, which just calls a specific page, if you like, on the web server, and that turns the, depending on which page you call or what parameter you apply to the call, it turns the light, so it turns the time on or off, and the page that comes back can say whether the light's on or off, and then the little Arduino will just read the web page and it goes light on or light off and react accordingly. Yeah, it's one of those things. I'll play about with it one day, it's the only problem. Actually, what I'll have to do is I'll have to do it on stream. That way I'll actually do it, because otherwise I have a couple of hours each night between finishing work and starting streaming, and mixed in with tea. to do any of this sort of stuff, so I probably will not get around to it for a long time. But if I do it on stream, then at least I might actually do it. Which is an interesting sort of idea. The only problem, whilst I got it in my mind, is I just don't know how to do some of the things. I know it's easily possible to do, and I can do the Arduino bit. The bit I actually would have a problem with is the web server and generating a page which the OBS can read that has a continuously updated timer on it. I know, well, I mean, one simple way is just to refresh the page every minute or something like that, and then you get a timer that advances in minutes, and it's probably not a bad. Almost everything that I do is several hours, not you're not counting anything less than a minute. Kind of know people like to see a second ticking away, but you know, it doesn't really add much. Other than perhaps a false sense of how quickly something takes. Yeah, VB6. Alright, well, I write a lot of stuff, generally speaking, in VBA rather than VB. But I quite enjoy writing VB. I keep trying to get into C# and managed code, which is very similar, but I'm kind of I have been a C programmer, never really got on with C++, if only because whilst I understand the concept of objects, and in visual terms, so you're talking about an application with on screen, I can understand the visual objects. Trying to actually determine what should be an object otherwise, something I actually find quite difficult. So for C++, especially in relation to Windows programming, I never quite got the hang of the object stuff. But C# looks quite interesting. I can sort of handle Java as well, which is another possibility of doing something like that in. For the PC, because then of course I can always run that on a Linux platform, for example. It's just a JVM, a virtual machine. It becomes a bit more portable. So because I do have odd machines around here, if only a couple of Raspberry Pis or something like that I can run that sort of stuff on. But I quite like programming. As when I got my airbrush, which was the start of all this art stuff, my wife was extremely skeptical that I could actually do anything. Shall we say? She got a bit surprised when I actually did the PC case, and keeps being surprised every time I do something new. But one of the things I realised in discussing the fact that I was better than she thought was just how much I kind of have been creative for many years. Writing computer programs is an extremely creative pastime, job, whatever you want to describe it as. Especially if you start writing visual interfaces and things like that. And of course the model making is a creative thing as well. I've been flying model aircraft of various kinds since I was about 13, so, and building the models to go with it. But it kind of surprised me just how creative I've been all these years when and I've not actually ever sort of done art as such, although I could draw quite well for and have been able to do for a long time. And this is just this area here is just a shadow that's on the elephant's face. And for some reason elephant keeps slipping out of my mind. I almost wanted to say eagle. The letter V is getting in there somewhere. And so this is just a shadow on the face. So we will add texture and darken that shadow as we add colour to the rest of the face. If you kind of wonder what I'm doing, this is kind of like the first stage of shadow, of colouring the face, and then we add colour all over and add more detail as we go along. So this is that area there, is just like a shadow underneath the eye socket of the elephant. Do with adding some shadow around here. So there's a whitish area here, which is kind of the skin, which comes up and over the top, but also between the tusk and the trunk, and over the top here, which is catching the light from the sun, which is coming in from this side here. So sort of the underneath of the trunk here is in shade. So I'm going to apply some colour. I'm getting cat hairs on this. I do not want cat hairs, because if the heat, this tool catches the cat hair, it doesn't smell very pleasant. Now the darkest bit of the shadow is at the bottom. It lightens out as we come up the trunk and we catch the main light coming in. It also is just sort of in this bottom area here, of course, because this whole side of the trunk is catching the light. I don't want a hard edge on this, so I'm endeavouring to make the strokes I'm doing here different lengths, or slightly different lengths, and I'm lifting off as I move up, so that it tapers off, because I don't actually want to suddenly have a straight line. Shadows don't do that; they just get progressively less dark. On a curved object anyway, like this. Shadows cast by you sticking a finger out, then you get a reasonably hard edge shadow. But I mean, even if you look at the one here on the baseboard for my finger, there's about 3 or 4 lights involved in casting that shadow, which is why it looks really sort of fuzzy. So even then you have to be a little bit wary of the light sources in whatever you're doing, where the shadow's involved. It really needs to be come up a bit more. And as I mentioned before, I'm still trying to sort of have a slight curve on here, because of course the trunk is curved, cylindrical. So I'm trying to move the tool in that way. Not that it's adding a lot of visible lines in that direction, but you do occasionally catch get a slight darker mark in some areas, or there's a slight darkness here, but it's tending to point this way, so it helps to reinforce the curve if you follow it with the tool. And you can do the same if you were doing it with a pencil, laying a pencil on its side. You'd want to follow the curves so that any sort of marks that do get made that are not exactly smooth, all are in that curved direction to reinforce that that feeling of it being curved. And sometimes it might not be much. I mean, I just accidentally made a darker mark than I intended here. So just if I just zoom in and a little bit down here on the camera, just a slightly dark mark, but just a couple of them here, just the angles tend to reinforce the fact that there's movement, if you like, in this direction. If you follow it around, it leads your eye around a little bit. And you can probably see some of the other marks a little bit in this shadowing, which are tending to curve. And it just helps lead your eyes in the right direction and reinforces the illusion of three-dimensionality. Actually, I'm just looking at that ear. That ear's starting to look quite good now. I'm looking at the OBS broadcast window, and I'll look at the preview coming back in a moment. But I'm looking at that, and now I'm starting to see that top of the ear actually is being folded over, and I can see the darker shadow underneath, which is cast by this this ear that's folded over. And I can see up here a little mark which suggests I've got a white edge just down here. There isn't actually a white edge down there, but just the angling of it and the way it's done, as I'm looking at it in the outgoing stream, just makes it look like I've got the white edge, which you would get with the sunlight shining on the edge of the ear. So it's a highlight, but it's a highlight that isn't actually present. I'm quite pleased with that. Oh dear. But it's little details sometimes like that which can make something look more realistic, or just break that illusion a little bit. I mean, I think I've got a bit more work to do around here. I'm not quite sure that I've got quite the thickness of shadow that I want, and down here I'm not quite sure yet, but it's working quite well. Amazing. Oh dear. As my wife would probably say, little things please little minds, and that's definitely a little thing. One of the things, by the way, I'm using this in using tools like this is it's a flat shader, but you don't actually have to use it flat down. I'm using it. I'm more using the edge of it at the moment rather than the thing flat. So I've got a smaller. It's like I'm using instead of using a fat paintbrush, I'm using a thin paintbrush. Yeah, it's the same tool. I'm just using it in a slightly different way, and indeed if I turn this actually on its edge, I can use it almost like a knife. And if you've seen the Pussycat pyrographic pieces, the fur was done with this this tool on its edge, and it creates lines basically in the wood, and those lines, if you do enough of them, looks like fur. So you know, tools can be used in different ways, and this one, for example, doesn't have to be used flat, even though that's what it's called, is a flat shader. But you just use the tools as suit the the job you're trying to do. Of course, sometimes a tool just isn't suitable for the job, and that's when you pick a different one. Thing with tipping the tool on its side, one of the things you get is the edge stays hotter, because there's the rest of the rest of the tool can transfer its heat down to that area. If I put it flat, the whole of the tool cools down, and so it works in a slightly, I won't say in a different way, but it gives a different characteristic to the way in which the tool is used. It's very much actually, I suppose, if you take a paintbrush, instead of using a paintbrush like this, you tip it and do it like that, and you get a thinner line, and your paint goes further because the paint comes from the rest of the brush onto the line that you're working on. Yeah. And the bottom edge of the trunk is actually the darkest bit of this area in terms of reference. Now I've just made that a bit darker than I intended, but that's not really a problem because there are creases and what have you in the skin, and that's just a darker, deeper crease. If this was meant to be something really smooth that I'd done that on, what I might have had to do, I can't really erase it, but what I might have had to do is make the rest of it around here the same colour, and then if necessary darken other areas of the picture to match, which could have meant reworking quite a large area of the piece. One of the reasons why I don't like turning the heat up too much on the pens, so that doesn't happen too often. And that really happened because I was holding the pen like this talking, and the pen, when it's not on the wood, heats up to a hotter temperature than it does when it's actually on the wood. The wood conducts the heat away, that's why it goes brown. But then if I've had this off the wood for a while and touch it down, that heat suddenly goes whoosh straight into the wood, and you very quickly get a dark mark. You'll sometimes see me blow on the tip to cool it down, so that doesn't happen. Well, if there's anybody watching that isn't a normal visitor to this stream, welcome. And if you are a normal visitor to this stream, also welcome. But for those of you that don't visit very often, if you're enjoying what you're seeing, I would have of course encourage you very much to follow. It's nice to see the numbers go up from my point of view. I'm not trying to drive for thousands of people, but it's just nice to see the numbers go up. But more importantly, what following will do for you, if you hadn't realised, and I'm sure you have, is in theory Twitch will tell you when I go live tomorrow and Sunday and Monday, and you'll come back and you'll be able to see more, especially some of the other crafts that I do. So I kind of do encourage people who want to follow. If you don't want to, that's equally fine. If you just want to know when I go live, you are also welcome to follow me on Twitter. The details are below the stream window, but it's at @Zeragonart because a tweet goes out when I go live as well. So that avoids Twitch altogether. And if you really are interested and you just want to come back just to try watching for a few times before you decide to follow or not follow, or get bored and do something else, then I generally stream from about 2000 hours British summer time, that's UK time at the moment, on 1900 hours GMT, same time, different time zone. For anything other than that, you kind of will have to look at Google, I'm afraid. I can't, well, apart from the fact I don't know, I can't list all the time zones. But if you want to know what time 8 o'clock is in the UK, it's about an hour and 35 minutes ago. Whatever time it is on your clock, an hour and 35 minutes ago was 8 o'clock in the UK. We are currently at 9:35 in the UK. Yeah. Now this area around here, I'm just trying to darken slightly, but again, I don't want a particularly straight edge on it, so you might be able to see me as I'm doing this, just sort of wobbling the tool, sort of making like a small scribbling mark. The intention is that this edge around here becomes either fuzzy or downright wiggly, and I don't get a very sharp defined edge. Really what this is it's a dip. I'm doing this, I don't know whether to do it to this camera or this camera. It's a dip in the skin. It's got, if you look between your fingers, it's sort of this sort of shape here. That's here, as it sort of, the skin comes off the trunk, around and up over the top of the tusk and this area here as it goes into the skull. It's not a great strong shadow, but it is quite a darkish sort of shadow just around here. So I'm working in a style here which would generally be described as photorealistic. Okay, now that has a sort of connotations that when I've done this it's going to look like a photograph. That's not true. I would hope it would, but it's not going to be true. What it kind of means is it has a slightly different connotation sometimes to different people, but in the context which I'm using it here, what it's referring to, Lady Medina, welcome. Thank you very much for following the studio. I do really appreciate you doing that. Thank you very much. I should maybe move that pyrographic text from the left hand side so people's names show up a little better when that pops up, but thank you. The photorealism kind of refers to it resembles a photo. There are styles where, for example, you would outline this. It'd be a black outline, and then you'd have colour inside. Photorealistic style doesn't do that. You know, you don't have, when you take a photograph of somebody, they don't have a black line around them outside. You know, the colour goes to the edge of the skin and stops, or it goes, you know, to the edge of the hair or whatever. And so I'm using it in that sort of context, that you would look at a photograph, you don't see a defined edge, you don't see a black line around things. You see a graduation of tone, you don't see hard, you know, 6 colours used, there's millions of colours used. Okay, I'm using a single colour, but it's like a newspaper, there's you know, hundreds of shades being used, not just 4 or 5. And so the photorealism in that case refers to that style of working more than it does to it looking like a photograph at the end. Although if you were to talk about airbrushing, there are artists who can do work that looks like a photograph, and unless you were actually with the piece itself and perhaps run your fingers over it, you would be hard pressed or almost impossible to tell it wasn't a photograph. And I've seen people, seen airbrush artists actually do that, actually creating work, and I trust them if you like, but I know that they are using an airbrush to do it, and even though I know it, it still looks like a photograph. That's a weird thing, but Incredible Fox, good evening. Pyrography, okay. Well, I'm glad you're finding it interesting. I enjoy doing it. I'm perhaps not doing as much as I should. If I start talking, I do sometimes forget to do it. Pyrography. It's only, well, as I say, this is a photorealistic style, but it's by no means the only style of pyrography that's done. There is a cartoon style. There are sort of just black and white, pure black and white styles. People do sort of doodling type things as well with it, and there are styles which effectively use like stamps, like you do an ink stamp, but it's a heated tool instead, a bit like branding, I guess. And all of them different images. Wow, Letty, oh, thank you. Oh, thank you very much. That is absolutely amazing. I thank you very much for doing that. I really do appreciate that. I really don't know what to say. Thank you. That's all. Wow. Thank you. I'm not really quite sure what else I can say. That is absolutely amazing. Thank you. That will help me to continue doing art and getting materials and things for the stream. That's very much appreciated. I better go and do some of it now, hadn't I? Yeah, sorry, I was just checking. I'd caught up with Twitch, with the streams chat. Sometimes I get engrossed either in talking or what I'm doing, and I don't always catch changes in the chat, especially as it seems that Eddie Fall Guy and Incredible Fox just randomly happen to have the same colour. But Lady Incredible Fox, thank you also for following the studio. I mentioned it earlier, but I really appreciate everybody that follows. If nothing else, it's wow. Soz said, thank you also for following. That's amazing. Blue TV, thank you also for following. Oh, wow. And I was waiting for that one. There's another one as well. Suffolk Cruiser 01, thank you very much for following. That is, again, I appreciate everybody that follows. And that's the other one I was waiting for, Remington. Thank you. I've got another window here that's giving me a little bit of advance notice in that particular case. Thank you also for following the studio. Lady. That is a second. Thank you. Wow. You don't need to do that, but thank you very much for that. I really do not know what words to say for that. Wow. If I was watching somebody else streaming what I'm doing now, I'd be crawling about on the floor. And I'm grinning from ear to ear. Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for all the people that have just been following. I really do appreciate you doing that. It's so nice to know that people at least enjoy what they're seeing and would like to come back. It really is kind of a motivating thing to see that. Thank you all, and thank you very much for the donations as well. And Lady, thank you. That will stay on the screen for quite a long time, I suspect. But thank you, and no words. Good. Thank you. I'll just keep saying thank you. You probably get sick of me saying thank you, so I'll go and do some of this, shall I? Which is perhaps the best thank you, is to actually do some more of the art that you enjoy seeing. I would say to everybody as well that has followed, I do other things as well. This pyrography is one of the things I do. I've just finished earlier this week. Finished some carving. You guys were watching me do carving a dragon, and I do some other crafts on stream as well. Scraperboard, punchcraft, and I do make some jewellery as well as the pyrography and the carving. So quite a variety we get through. And I do have some others to do at some point in the future as well, as time and space allow. I really do sort of enjoy different art forms and different crafts. And I do like to try lots of things. So anybody that's watching, does anybody else do any form of art? Do any of you stream? I certainly enjoy watching art and crafts being streamed. Since I found the creative section, I don't think, apart from one person, I don't think I've watched any game streams or anything on Twitch since I found creative. And there are just so many wonderful streamers. I think we have AD Fall Guy, who's still around in the stream, I suspect. For example, who does chainmail jewellery. He makes sort of bracelets, necklaces, chainmail bags, wallets, watch straps, belts, lots of things. And if you're not familiar with what chainmail is, I'll give you give you something. That's a chainmail bracelet. Just so you can see, and you can check AD out. AD streams it 5 days a week during the UK afternoon, 1 to 3 p.m. Akib, thank you also for following. I will keep saying it, but I do appreciate everybody that follows. It really is fantastic when you do that. Thank you very much. Amused DSC, thank you as well. Wow, this is an amazing night. This really is an amazing night. Thank you very much. Fricaria, Apologies if I haven't quite got that right. Thank you very much for doing that. Fox, thank you for that donation as well. That is really appreciated. It really is great. Thank you very much for doing that. Wow, this is an amazing evening. This is one of the best evenings on Twitch that I've had for a long time. Thank you all guys for following and for the donations. That really is appreciated a great deal. I was talking about AD Fall Guy and about this, this isn't one of AD's, this is one I've made, but this is the sort of thing AD makes. Necklaces and things. This is a what's called a Byzantine chain. This is a particular bracelet which I made for my wife for a birthday present. But this is the sort of thing you can see AD stream during the week, Monday to Friday, between 1 and 3 PM. And he'll also stream making things like this on a Wednesday evening. Somewhere, I'm not quite sure if he's still around what Wednesday evening is, but between about 6 and 9 o'clock, something like that. I'm not quite sure of his evening hours, and a couple of other nights a week he streams games. But there we go. Akib, you did it. You did what? Amused DC, thank you very much. I appreciate anybody that watches, and thank you for thinking it's as beautiful as you say. I would hope it is, but I try my best. Incredible Fox. No, that's I don't want anybody to donate more than they can afford to, and nobody should feel that they have to donate or anything like that. If you do, I really do appreciate it. It does go, or will go, into things like material, rings, wood, pens, carving tools, anything to do with the stuff that I'm streaming. So thank you all very much. One of the things I'm saving for example, is another one of these cameras, so that this one that I'm looking at would be a better quality camera, for example. And this one, which actually I borrowed from my works PC, can go back there. Remington, those colours remind me of the Golden State Wind. What on the on this? These colours are gold and lavender actually. Unfortunately, this Logitech cameras have a problem with purple, which lavenders are really like purple, if you see what I mean. They tend to show it more blue. Everybody that has one of these cameras has exactly the same problem. AD has the same problem, and there's another streamer that I know of called See What Happens, Chris, who is making he makes sculptures out of pipe cleaners, and by sculptures I mean big sculptures 5 feet tall. He's currently working on a Mega Man, though he's taking a break from it at the moment when he streams and doing Minecraft for a while. But he has a problem as well, in that his purple pipe cleaners show up blue. So there's just a weird thing with these Logitech cameras. But Lady Medina, I will get that right. It'll take a little bit of practice, but Lady Medina, beautiful colours. Would you like to see some beautiful colours? I'm assuming you mean of the chain. These are the colours that those rings come in, or are available in. So there's some beautiful colours. We've got silver. Amused DSC. Wow. You guys are absolutely amazing. Thank you very much for that. I'm not quite sure what does Dankart mean. I apologise. I'm not sure whether that was a misspelling or whether it was meant to be a slip of a German word. Batmafori, thank you very much for following. I'll keep saying it, but I do appreciate everybody that follows. That really is fantastic of you. Berry ____. Thank you very much for following as well. I have oh, you guys. You guys are absolutely amazing tonight. It is absolutely fantastic. Galaxy, that's an interesting spelling. Galaxy 123, you too also for doing so. Amused AC, Dankart equals really good at. Thank you very much. I wondered if the that was sort of slightly a German type of word, dank, as in thank you or good or that sort of thing. I will get to chat in a minute. I'll just go through this and I'll answer some of the questions. So just to give you an idea of some of these colours, because some of them don't quite come out quite well. They're a bit more vivid in real life. We've got silver, we've got a white, as it's called. We've got, this is called seafoam. It's sort of a light green. We have a yellow. It's a more of a greenish yellow in real life. On the stream it looks more gold, but it's a lovely lovely yellow. We've got a sky blue here. It's a light blue colour. Again, some of the shiniest reflections are changing the colours a little bit. We've got a light. It's pink. Is this basically? It's looking a little bit purple on stream, but it's a nice sort of pink colour. This is gold. This is bronze. It's sort of a light browny colour. Now this one is a deep lavender compared to, in theory it's the same as I've got here, but unfortunately with all of these rings sometimes batch colours mean there are variations, but this one is a deeper lavender. This is a lighter lavender, and unfortunately it's just the way these things happen. But it's showing up more blue, as I mentioned earlier. This camera's a little bit more, doesn't show up the purple so well. This is a nice orange, sort of an orangey bronzy colour. A lovely deep purple here. Unfortunately it shows up blue, but it's a lovely deep purple. Black. This is called I forgot it was something ice. Black ice it's called. It's kind of a grey, or it's like I'd say it's like a really tarnished silver, but it's not tarnished. It's real shiny, sort of not quite black, but not quite sort of dark silver. This is brown. I've forgotten what colour this is called, but it's a darker version of this. Really, it's sort of a dark brown. We've got a lovely red and a lovely green, sort of Christmas colours. This red looks a bit dull, so does the green on the camera, but they're really shiny. I wonder if I move that, it might help. No, that doesn't help. And then we've got, this actually does look like it does on stream. It's a lovely blue colour. So I'll go back to answer some of the comments here in the chat. Is pyrography hard to learn? Not really, no. There is, I mean, to some extent it's a hot tool. I'll just put those to one side. And I've got a scrap of wood here. It's a tool. It's hot, and depending on which type of pyrography or what type of pyrography tools you get, you just put it down on the wood and hold it. The longer you hold it, the darker it becomes. So if I move, you probably can't see that, but I can see there is a mark. Actually, you can just see a mark. I'll move it a bit slower. So I'm keeping it moving so it doesn't make a mark. The heat isn't in one place for long enough. So from that perspective, that's all you have to learn. The rest is more to do with artistry, learning things like where shadows should be and how shadows are, and that's really just practice. So you know, it's it's a skill-based thing, is pyrography, more than being hard to learn, if you see what I mean. Hopefully that sort of makes sense. But there are other forms, like you can use a form of this generally with a slightly different tool, but it's used like a stamp. So you just put it down, hold it, and it works quite quickly, and you lift off, and you know, you can make another mark, so you can create patterns. So I could do something like this. So what I'm hoping to try and make, it didn't work so well. What I'm hoping to try and do is make something that looks a bit like a clover, and then I could maybe just put a stalk down there like that. Let's just make that one a bit darker, and I'm just holding it on the wood. So I'm kind of carbonizing the wood here, which is something I don't normally do. But there you've got like a clover, or you know, some leaves. So it you know, that's as easy as it can be. If you want to do that, you don't have to go into this sort of photographic type technique. You guys have now got to read back in the chat. Wow. Okay. Thank you very much, Lady Medina. Thank you. Incredible Fox. You're a mute, so am I. Oh, I do spend a lot of time on the internet. Use DSC, but perhaps not in the same places where that gets used a lot. I'm afraid. Incredible Fox. The colours are so, yeah, I love those colours. The fact that they're shiny and rich colours, even the pale ones are rich colours, if you see what I mean. They really do stand out really nicely, and I enjoy the colours. I won't say I can sit and look at them for hours, but you know, I do enjoy just looking at them in the sunlight, or with like this as sort of a spotlight on them. Remington, well, thank you. I kind of agree with you. It would be nice to get a sub button, but unfortunately, I don't think I'm quite big enough yet. But with you guys' help, maybe that would happen. I would love to be able to do this sort of thing full time. It's not going to happen. It really isn't, even with a sub button, because unfortunately, creative just isn't that big. But it would be nice to be able to do that at some point in the future. But that's certainly going to be years away. But thank you for the sentiment very much. By all means, if you want to tweet out anything about me, get people to come and watch, I'd love that. I really don't mind. Lush07, I am prepared to sell them, yes. Make them to order. Antique Bronze, thank you very much. Champagne, AD there. AD, of course, also makes them, so he remembers things like the names when I forget them. When I'm not on stream, I could probably have reeled off all those names exactly, but that's so. Yeah, Lush07, if you're interested, drop me a PM on Twitch. We can talk about that. Yeah, unfortunately, one of the things I hope I'm sort of working on is going to be either to put something, well, I'll probably build a website for it. Actually, I suppose one of the things I could do is put a picture on Twitch itself. You know, in the details below the stream window, just the colours, because I think the colours are absolutely amazing. But hopefully at some point I'll have a website built and I can put, you know, things like that and images like this I'm working on here on there, so people can see some of the past things that I've done. Okay, yeah, because yeah, the purple, that purple is a beautiful rich purple colour. Sort of royalty type purple, and it just doesn't show up. It's a real pity. XPL, well, I suppose that depends on where you live. I'm a Yorkshire lad in the UK, so if you're not in Yorkshire, then I'm not a neighbour. Poke Ranger 69, that's another excellent streamer here. Poke Ranger. Poke Ranger makes glass sculptures, I think is the best way of describing it, isn't it, Poke Ranger? So he blows glass and he melts glass, and it's another art form I can watch for hours and hours and hours. That's the Fallen Angel Beats. Thank you very much for following this evening and following the studio. I do, and I'll keep repeating myself, but I do appreciate everybody that's following. And tonight's an absolutely amazing night with you guys. XPPL, sorry, I missed the bit. I don't know quite what it is that you've used before. Let's have a look. Makes me think. Makes you think of wood burning, but a little more. What the pyrography? Effectively, it is wood burning, although technically we're not burning wood. We're more cooking the sap. That's in, or the resin that's in the wood fibre, than burning wood. If you use a stamp, then generally you'll carbonise the wood, which really is actually burning it without setting fire to it. A bit like how they make charcoal in a way. But it's just the same thing. It's just degrees. So even in the tools that apply a lot of heat, if you use them fast, you can create shades. It's just easier with cooler tools or with tools like this to create the multiple shades, which suits my style that I like to produce art in. Other people provide, like doing stamps and doing things like that, which is just as valid. And actually, I might try a bit like that myself, because that's quite pretty. If you like, I could do some sort of design, or even just some black and white stuff like that. So. X-Ray, do a pyrography of that particular, which one is it, that one, Kappa. It's a challenge. I have done things that I think perhaps are a bit more challenging, like this. I have done I wish I could find it, but I have done a portrait of somebody, actually of a singer-songwriter called John Miles, and I've done his portrait in quite a few things actually, just besides pyrography. One in scraper board and in airbrush, but not as much of a challenge as it used to be. But one of my other viewers has also suggested I do one of her avatar as well. You've used pyrography in school to engrave names in. Yeah, in fact I can do that here. If I switch tools, well, I can use that one. I've got a writing tip, so if I just switch tools and turn the heat up a bit, what I can do with this is, let me turn it up quite a bit actually, then it'll be faster. Give this a bit of time to heat up. Just like that. So that's a writing tip. It can also be used just to create lines as well. Now this you might just see is glowing red. I've turned it up enough to glow red. So if I do this quickly, I create quite light lines. If I slow it down, I get dark lines, and if I stop, you can see the smoke coming off. I generally don't like to get that hot though. Let me just turn that off to cool down a little bit while I catch up. How long everyone wants to see Kappa? Yeah, actually, I've not noticed that before, but I shall take your word for that, Poke Ranger. How long do I usually stream? Generally speaking, on a night, about 2.5 hours. I may go on a bit longer since this is an amazing night, and I'm getting quite enthused by this. Poke Ranger the Elephant, thank you very much. I hope it'll look a lot better by the time I've finished, and maybe the giraffe in the background here. I kind of want to do a sort of a savanna type scene, if you like, probably a sunset. So unfortunately I can't put the sun in it because of the angle of the shadows that I'm working with, but I'm going to try and maybe get a nice dark sky behind here, a sort of a rich brown colour, but we'll see how that goes. Sapphic Cruiser 01. I could, but why might I wish to do that at this moment in time? I don't tend to want to mod people that I've not really had much interaction with, and Lady Medina I've only known for this evening, but I shall take that under advisement. Pyros Unite. Well, I guess to some extent you do have an affinity with that, don't you, Poke Ranger? I mean, you could use your propane torch. You probably want to use thicker wood, but I have seen some pyro artists use propane torches or acetylene torches to create pyrography, but they just have to be really fast. Thank you. I assume you were talking about the two pussycats there, Lady Medina. Thank you. You love cats, yeah. No, they're not kittens. They are both quite old. Well, both quite old cats. This one is actually the older cat. He's probably about 8 years old. This cat's called Felix. He's a black and white cat. Actually, he's a real dark brown. And this cat is called Junior. He's probably about 4, but he's a real chunky cat. He used to be a wild cat, actually. Wild. We call them feral. Rather, a wild cat's a natural animal. This is a domestic cat, if you like, that was running wild. And he's been tamed. He moved in of his own accord. He's a real chunky cat. He does appear on stream from time to time, does Junior, and he actually sits behind a monitor that's down there, and sometimes he'll come and sit on my knee. He's not been on stream for a few weeks, but he does pop up from time to time. Everybody loves cats. I know I've promised when either of the cats come and lay behind the monitor, I'll turn this camera around so you can all see him. The female cat that we've got is a tortoise shell. She's called Cleo or Cleocatra, sorry, to give her a full name. She doesn't come upstairs at all, so you won't see her. Yeah, the pussycats. Do I have any more previous work to show? I can do some of that. I don't have a lot around here. I can show you a relief carving. So this was the first relief carving I did on stream. It's a really shallow relief carving because this is ash, and it turned out to be really hard to carve. So it's really shallow, and then the stream suggested that I actually paint it, so we applied some paint to it. So that's the first carving that I ever did on stream. The second carving that I've done on stream was one we just finished earlier this week, which was this one. This is a dragon. This is a representation of dragons from a series of books written by Anne McCaffrey, and this is sort of in the form of fan art from it's based on an image, and I'll show you the reference image for that, which is oh god blimey, I've now forgotten who it is that that painted this. Oh, I will see if I can remember. It just won't come to mind at the moment. But this is it was done by a professional illustrator, and was the favourite illustrator for the author of a series of books, science fiction books, about a world called Pern, in which these dragons live with mankind and help to eradicate the world of a particular menace. Michael, not quite, I'll get it. So this is kind of my interpretation of that. So that was carved on stream. I shall catch up on stream in a minute. I'm not very good at 3D carving, so full 3D carving, so I started trying to do a human sculpture, but that's not great. It's practice actually, so I'm getting there. Actually, talking about pussycats, I started trying to do one using carving chisels, using carving knives, and so I've started, but just now I've got much further in doing a sleeping pussycat in with a knife, some really sharp knives. To show you some other things, however. Okay, punchcraft. A bit like making rugs. You punch a needle with a thread through material, and it leaves a loop in the material. So that's punchcraft. So that's a UK diesel electric locomotive. So that's something else. And I'm going to have to go back to chat in a minute. So I started also doing something called scraper board. Scraper board is it's card covered by China clay with a layer of black Indian ink over the top of it. Now, and then you scrape the ink away to produce the image. Now, until I did the first one ever on stream, I'd never even touched scraper board before. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you my very first attempt at doing scraper board. So you'll have to just treat me a little bit gently. But that's my first attempt. Now that's a gentleman called John Miles, who's a singer-songwriter, used to be in the charts a good few years ago, and he's still heavily involved in the music industry. He gets involved in all sorts of things musical wise. So that was the first one. I've done another one since then, or I've started another one, not quite finished it. And that's this one. That's sort of an archetypal image, I guess. But of course, that's Earthrise. Dragons of Pern, Akib. Yep, that's correct. Anne McCaffrey. There's about 20 or so in the series, and now there's her son Todd McCaffrey is also writing them. And that particular dragon, by the way, being white, is Ruth, if you're familiar with the books. Pyrography with a propane torch, Cleopatra, yeah. Ah dear. So those are a couple of things. Let me just put those away. So what else might I have done? I did build a helicopter on stream as well. So I happen to have a helicopter kit that I needed to build. So we did build a quadcopter, this is, on stream. And whilst I couldn't actually fly it on stream, I did show a video of it being flown on stream. And I think I've done some other things, but at the moment I just can't bring them to mind. And I do some other crafts as well besides these. Oh, jewellery, which was mentioned earlier. This is one of them. I've got a few other pieces which my wife is wearing, so I can't really show you those at the moment. Let me put that away. Ah dear. So let me catch up. So Incredible Fox, did that answer the question? And that's just the stuff on stream. I've been doing things like carving for about 3 years. Not hundreds of pieces. I've got a few other pieces around, and I do glass engraving. Again, not on stream. high-speed rotary carving, airbrushing. I've got some airbrush pictures around the place and things like that. So I shall just say, Dazzy, thank you also very much for following. That is really appreciated. That's fantastic of you doing that. Thank you. Excuse me while I just catch up the handwriting from the Poke Ranger. Well, that's not my handwriting. That's me being very careful and decorative. Could I write some of your names? I don't see why not on the back of that piece of wood. It's a scrap piece of wood. The Incredible Fox, would you be able to commission something like that? Yes, I could do so. You would easiest way, drop me a private message and we can discuss that. Depending, it's how much commissions cost depend really on how much time they take and just levels of detail and things like that, which really translates down into time. So who was asking? That's okay. Let me turn this on then. Let's turn up the heat. So who said could I write some of those names? It was am I getting some heat on this? So let's see. Use let's go like I'm trying to do it a bit faster, but I'm not. I should slow down a bit more. But there we go. There's a Muse DSC. And I'm sure I'm going to have a few more of you now ask for the names, but I don't mind. Yep. Cats are kittens. That is perfectly true. The amount of time they'll play with a laser dot or a piece of string or something like that is even some of the our old cat Cleo is the oldest cat we've got, but if you get her in the right mood and she'll chase anything around the place like a mad cat, chase a tail and all sorts of things. Really amazing. And she's 10. Yeah, Cleo is about 10 as well. She moved in and had kittens about 2 days after she moved in, which is probably why she moved in. You burn through material veil. Yes, I think you might do that in your case, Poke Ranger. But I mean, that torch of yours, you should have incredible control with that torch of yours to be able to do something like that. Right, so many crafts. Well, thank you for believing I've got many talents. I kind of just consider it just different interpretations of the one creative ability, really. I just feel really lucky that I can express it in so many different ways. I love that moon, that Earthrise, which is kind of why I did it, and I think it really suits that that black and white image. So it's one I've wanted to do for years, and I've had it in my head, and just never been able to have the confidence to put it down on any sorts of material. But when I got the scraper board, it was kind of like I just had to do that one. I really did, and I'm not quite finished it. I think he wants a bit more work on it, and I may do it when I finish the pyrography. I'll be doing scraper board next. I haven't quite decided I haven't decided at all what to do in it. But I'll probably do a bit more work in that one if I haven't finished it by then. Too many talents. Well, it could be Akiba. You know, it does take. All of these things take time to develop the skills. So I'm not as skilled as I would be if I stuck to just one. But I kind of get a little bit restless doing just one, so I like skipping from skill to skill. I like learning, to be honest. So things like the chainmail, the jewellery. it looked interesting, and it was a fascinating thing to learn how to do just the Byzantine weave, and there's hundreds of weaves, and I'm looking forward to learning more of them. Sorry, it's in front of me. But so is the Pyrography, and of course you do chainmail as well, so if you guys want to see any more chainmail, take a look at AD Fall Guy. He does some really excellent stuff. He's the guy actually that, having watched him and bought some pieces off of him, it inspired me to want to try, and AD's been really helpful in that. So again, thank you AD. Poke Ranger also with his glass work. Really, I used, as a kid, I used to sit in front of glass workers like him in shops, and I'd watch them for hours. And I know a few of the stream have joked that I'm not doing glass work yet, but I'm not going to start that one. Dear, it takes a lot of training, and it's not a particular. If you're not being trained in it, I can imagine it being quite dangerous if you're not careful. So I don't have anywhere to get that training, and I do think I probably do enough already. Please, right, lady. Okay. I'm guessing that, I don't know, but I'm guessing that Lady Medina has got something to do with all you guys coming into the stream this evening. Am I correct in that guess? Normally, I must admit, I'd turn the heat down, and I'd do that a lot slower if I was doing an actual working piece. But there we go, Lady Medina. Well, I will say thank you very much, Lady Medina, for that. What is it that you stream then? I guess because everybody else obviously has been watching you. So tell me about what you do. Come on, let's share out what this is, and let me know. Okay, was that the multicoloured one, the rainbow coloured 180 Fall Guy, or was it another one in addition to that? Okay, Remington, thank you. She's the reason that you're here. Well, again, thank you, Lady Medina. Video games, okay. What sort of games? Do I have Steam? Oh, the Rainbow Set AD. I do have Steam, but I was about to say I probably don't. I was about to say I probably don't play the sort of games that you guys maybe watch, but there again, maybe you do. I kind of like games. What sort of game? Well, shall we say the games that are on my desktop permanently are Train Simulator, Euro Truck Simulator, Farming Simulator, London Underground Simulator, and the Scion adventure games like Myst and things like that. and I kind of like the Myst ones and that sort of adventure game. I do occasionally play shooting. Actually, Minecraft's on there as well, modded Minecraft. I do occasionally play shooter games, but I'm more into adventure type shooting games. So, like the old Doom, or I have a problem sometimes where names just go out of my mind. The Umbrella Corporation. I'm trying to think of now what games that's from. But it's that series of games as well. It's kind of puzzle solving, shooting things. Okay. Well, I tell you what. I will do follow. And the next time you stream, well, I'll say the next time I'm able to watch you while you're streaming, I'll take a look, Lady Medina, and thank you for dropping in. So Counter-Strike, Global Offensive. Okay, I don't mind watching those. I admit I don't watch them all the time. I do drop in on occasionally. A couple of streamers. I say occasionally. I used to drop in occasionally. These days, literally, there's so many people in creative that since I discovered creative, and this was before I started streaming in it, I basically have watched nobody else outside of creative. There's a couple of people. One of them's Matt Pendleton, who does Train Simulator, but that's about it. Wow. So oh dear, it's been an amazing night. Shall I do a bit more of this? I'm going to go on for a little while. You guys around like this, I can't really suddenly. I normally only stream for about 2-ish hours from about 8 o'clock in the UK, which would have meant basically I'd have finished about half an hour ago. But I can't really do that now, can I? I've got to go on for a little bit longer. How long have I been streaming for? I guess there's 2 hours for that. 2 answers for that. 2.5 hours. Or for about a couple of months. Now, I'd have to look to see when exactly I started streaming, but about a couple of months is how long I've been streaming for. And I kind of got hooked on the first day. It was just, it suits my style. I used to do lecturing, technical lecturing, so I'm kind of end up, sometimes I end up teaching as I'm doing this sort of thing, which is part of my aim anyway, because when I wanted to look at things like pyrography, I saw some being done and I thought, hey, that's fun, I'd quite like to try that. Or things like the carving, and I went looking on YouTube and the internet for help basically as to how to do it or what to do, and I found lots of videos or even some streamers where it basically said, okay, this is what you do. You take this tool and you put it on here and that's your elephant. And my instinctive reaction to it is, yeah, but what happens if I want to do a pussycat? Do I use the same tool? Or do I need different wood? Or, all these sorts of questions. And so I got really frustrated by people that sort of said, this is how you do it. And so what I try really hard to do when I'm streaming, and one of these days I'll maybe put some YouTube videos out as well, but when I'm streaming is to say, this is what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. So this is why I'm using this tool, or this is what I'm trying to do, so that anybody who is interested and to want to try it themselves can understand a little bit more about what to apply it to whatever it is they're trying to do. So you might know how to do an elephant, but hopefully you'd also be able to take that same information, because I've hopefully explained a little bit about why this tool works better than the one you saw me writing with, and why I'm using a low temperature rather than a high temperature, and that sort of thing, so that if you want it to do a car, or you want it to do a cat, or I don't know, a bird, you'd be able to take some of that knowledge and apply it to what you're doing and not feel totally frustrated by it. Oh, 3D Bloke, good evening. Here is yet another guy that I recommend you check out. 3D Bloke is actually he's the reason I started streaming. Is 3D Bloke. 3D Bloke is an airbrush artist, and he sometimes works with a hairy thing, you know, hairy thing. Only uses smaller ones than that. He does some lovely monochrome work, which is what I saw him do the first time, which is what I love doing is monochrome airbrush, and this of course is monochrome. And he's been doing things like Darth Vader in white, monochrome, single colour white, Darth Vader, Alien, the xenomorph out of Alien, and he's done one or two other things as well, some abstractish sort of work in colour. But he's another one that's highly recommend checking out. As say, I watched him, chatted to him on his stream because he attracted me because of the airbrushing, and he kind of said, "Why don't I stream?" And I kind of promised to do it, and there's the history, so to speak. So I do recommend you check him out. He's having a little bit. I think he's having a little bit of a rest now. He might say in chat, and he's getting his inspiration back, and hopefully we'll see him stream again soon. Incredible. Yeah, I try and do that with all of them, with the carving or whatever. Explain a little bit about what and how, and explain my limitations as well, you know, because I'm practicing, I'm learning, and I'm making mistakes. That carving the right hand wing on the dragon, I recarved that 4 times. Was it? I can't remember the right hand or left hand wing now. I had to recarve it 4 times because of mistakes. And I have made a mistake. This is the mistake I've made, and this is what I'm going to do to correct it. It is an interesting one. Talking of pyrography and mistakes, I'll show you a practice piece I made, and it's on brown hardboard because that doesn't cost me anything. So this was a practice piece, and there is a mistake on this, which is extremely obvious to me because I know what the mistake is. But I'm quite happy to explain what that mistake is. You can look at that, and I suspect you won't see it. Not many people do. But the mistake is that you can see the propellers. Well, generally speaking, that's an effect you get from a video because of the way the frame snaps. The video is sort of individual pictures that are snapped. You get the still frame effect of moving objects, and I have represented what would be a video image of the plane rather than a real life image. If I was looking in real life, I would not be able to see those propellers spinning at all. They'd just be a blur. It might appear slightly lighter, but that's about it. But being the artist, you see, I can make up a story about this, and that is, this thing, is it doing an emergency landing? All 4 propellers have stopped. That's why he's doing an emergency landing. I can get away with it. But, I'm quite happy to explain the fact that I've made a mistake and what it is, and hopefully I won't do that again. And maybe if one of you guys was trying an art form where you want it to do something like a plane with propellers or anything moving really, car wheels, that sort of thing, you'll go, hey, that guy made that mistake, that's something I might want to avoid. There you go, you see. Ah dear. So yeah, and I do echo what AG's just said, Free. I do hope you feel better soon. Remington, thank you very much for dropping in. You're welcome to come back anytime, of course, probably when Lady Medina isn't streaming, but that's quite all right. You're welcome, and any of you, of course, are welcome to come back at any time when I'm streaming. I enjoy having you all guys around. I won't be streaming again today. Tomorrow night I'll be on from 8 PM in the UK, so that's in about what? We're coming up to about 11 o'clock now, so about 21 hours. You might catch me on in about 16 more hours tomorrow afternoon in the UK, 2-3 PM, something like that. I'll probably do something different to the pyrography. I want to try and do a little bit more chain work, maybe try a new weave. Lady Medina, thank you very much for bringing the guys in. It has been great fun having you all around. Absolutely fantastic. It's the best night I've had on Twitch since the first night I streamed, and it probably beats that as well, so thank you very much. Yep, you are right, Incredible Fox. Avro Lancaster. I was kind of practicing because what I might feel like doing is doing a World War I flight series. You know, the Lancaster, the Spitfire, the Hurricane, you know, the typical ones, or maybe even go and do some of the things like the Halifax and one or two others. They're they're a nice thing, nice object to do. Is sort of the Battle of Britain type stuff. Same with the trains. It's a nice, you can form a nice series out of them, and you're doing something different but in the same style. Akib, thank you very much for that. Amused DSC, thank you, and to everybody who donated tonight. That is absolutely wonderful. I really, really, really thank you very much for doing that. That's I just really don't have the words to say thank you any more than that. Puck Ranger, thank you. Well, I'm around every evening. I know there's a time zone problem for you you over there, but I am around every evening. Have I tried landscape carvings? I haven't. I have no objection to trying. That might be an idea for next time. Not quite sure how I'd tackle it, but that's part of the fun of the stream, is to learn how to do something like that on stream with you guys watching, and we'll see how it goes. Yeah, I'm kind of getting in the way actually myself. Pork Ranger, it's 11:15 for me here in the UK. So good night to you, and thank you for dropping in. Every evening, yes, at the moment, other than when some other personal event is going on, but yeah, 7 nights a week. 7 nights a week. Ah, okay. I don't know. Your glasswork is your business, isn't it? So I suppose you can work anytime you like and arrange it. Unfortunately, I have a job in addition to doing this, so I kind of have to work sort of 9 till 5 in the UK. And I try my best not to go to sleep in that time. Anyway, I'm going to do a bit more. Unfortunately, as I say, it's getting a bit late for me, but I'm going to go on till about 11 o'clock, which is about another 15 minutes. So those of you that are going, thank you again for joining and everything. It has been absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. And now, elephants. I feel kind of energized, but I know I'm gonna crash at some point, so I'm not going to go on for too long because I don't want to ruin things. But let's me darken down here, because this is down the chest of the elephant. So I was about to say I can't make a mess of this. You want to bet? I have turned the heat down, so I don't want to burn this, and it would work better. I'm thinking that's not working too well. It would work better if I threw the switch that said put the power to this tool rather than the writing tool. which is the bit I forgot. See, I make mistakes on stream. I even tell you guys what I'm doing. So I didn't really need to blow it the first time. It wasn't hot. But I should have done that at that point actually. And can I do it? Yes, I can just do it. This is low voltage, by the way. Although it's plugged into the mains, this is low voltage. I am touching the tip electrical contacts here. I'm not going to hold it for much longer because it's getting hot, but it's very low voltage. In case you sort of wondered, any sort of danger is from the heat, not from the electricity. It's I can't actually remember what this is. It's somewhere between 1.5 and 3 volts, which is a couple of batteries, torch batteries, in voltage terms. It's just a lot of current, which is what makes it hot. Getting a bit of glare here. Oh, did she go on for 26 hours? She didn't fall asleep in the middle. And why would your body clock be messed up? I mean, you just carry on from where you left off 24 hours later. How do I go about making mistakes? Making mistakes is easy. Correcting mistakes. It really depends, Incredible Fox. In this style of work, mistakes generally are marks where you don't want them, or it being darker than you want it to be. Now, I won't say it's impossible to erase, but it's difficult. You could take sandpaper to this and sand it to remove something, or you can take something like a scalpel and scrape to remove something, but both of those disrupt the surface of the wood, and if you try and put colour back over the top of them, it looks different. And in actual fact, just give you an example. I can give you sort of an example of that. Oh, I hope I can. See if I can just catch it in the right light. I can see this quite plainly here, but there. And if you can see that was sticky tape on this piece of wood, and I didn't notice it at first. That's just taking sticky tape off the top, and you can see how it's disrupted the surface of the wood. And now that mark went all the way across, and I can see here, I can see a variation in colour. As I go across, I can see quite clearly where the line extends. You can just catch it here on the stream. The glare's not helping, but it changes the way in which the colour looks if you disrupt the surface. Now, sanding it or using a knife blade to scrape it would disrupt the surface. Now, this shows it off particularly because it's quite a shiny surface, but even this wood would do the same, because if you sand this, it goes smoother, and let's say it just reflects that, you know, the colour changes slightly because of it. But you do use that sort of technique. For example, you see the white marks here, the whiskers. That was done with a scalpel and scraping it. So sometimes you can. It has been suggested to me actually to try using something like isopropyl alcohol, because this is kind of like a varnish or a resin varnish, which may dissolve. I'm a little bit reluctant. Well, I'll try it one day on a scrap piece of paper, but again, applying alcohol to the wood will tend to raise the grain of the wood, which again will probably change the surface texture. So it's really difficult to erase. So what you would do is, let's say I wanted to get rid of this dark mark that you can just see here. What I'd have to do is darken everything around it, so that it didn't stand out. Everything around it was similarly dark. That would mean that this shadow area here I'd need to make darker still, so it stayed as a shadow. if I did that, this area here would probably look too light, so I'd darken that down. So gradually what you end up doing is darkening everything else around it until your darkened area just isn't visible anymore. And if I'd made a, accidentally made a mark on here in the middle of an area that I didn't want to have colour at all, that's really my only way of doing it, is to say, okay, well, apply colour and darken everything else around it. If it was a place I wanted to really keep white, and the elephant's head isn't one, but assume it was, or like, let's say I'll say the pussycat's nose here. If I'd made a mark on there and I really wanted to keep it white, because the intention would be not to colour the wood, I could probably sand that, because I'm not going to apply colour over the top. But incidentally, that isn't plain, that's actually got colour applied to it. It's not, whilst it looks white, it's actually had a pyrographic colour applied, it's actually had heat applied. It's the contrast that makes it look white. I suspect, interestingly, you may see the eyes as being green as well. A lot of people do. Not that one so much, but Junior's eyes here, a lot of people believe that they can see those as green. Just a weird thing with colour shifts on your eyes. But that's how you would erase or try and get rid of something that wasn't as you wanted it to. Incredible Fox. AD, if you're still around, good night. Thanks for dropping in. And 3D bloke, 5 hours sleep, that's enough, isn't it? You're a young guy, unlike me. Yeah, I listened a little bit, but not to anything extensive. Of course, I was at work for quite a bit of it. It's not exactly no fail. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I like using low heat Incredible Fox, so that, well, apart from when I initially put this down, which is why I'm just blowing on the tip just to cool it down a bit, but I can take it slowly. I mean, here, I don't have to be really fast with the tool. I'm moving it quite slowly. I am getting some colour, and it takes a while to build up, and I'll go over this again and build more colour into it, which is what I've done here. It started off lighter than this, it went to that colour, it then went to this colour, and it went to this colour, and the dark one is darker still. So I start really light, and you this sort of area here, for example, is hardly visible. So if I really need to, get rid of that, then I don't have a lot of corrective work to do around it to make it disappear. So it's not exactly no fail, and you do fail, and you have to deal with it and work on it. But that's why I like working with a light temperature rather than a heavy temperature or a high temperature. Because with the high temperature, you have to get it right first time. If you saw me with a writing tip, as soon as I put that down, I got a black mark. There's no real chance of correcting that. It's carbonised. The only way to correct that is to scrape it out or to sand it out. And to be honest, if I did that on a piece like this and accidentally had this turned way up and put it down in the middle of here, got a really black mark, what I'd probably do is say, all right, start again. If I'd almost finished it, I might try and do something with it. Chances are I probably wouldn't be happy with it, but I would look on it, okay, it's a practice piece. I've practiced, I've got better, I'll do it again. Especially if it was a commission or something like that, I wouldn't want to send something out that I wasn't happy with. So I'd if I needed to, I'd start again. But generally speaking, I using light heat, I can generally speaking avoid that sort of thing. The only thing I do have to watch is if I spend a lot of time chatting holding this in the air like this, the tool itself does heat up more than it would do normally. And if I just put it down without thinking about it, I sometimes get a bit of a darker mark than I intended, which is kind of how that black one appeared there. But that's not really a problem to me because of the texture of the ears. I can deal with that, and so I'm not trying to correct that at the moment. But that is sort of that's about the only danger